Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are within the continental United States. To all of my friends and those that may not be friends yet, I'm going to see if I can't explain why things are the way they are and why we seem to have a problem, if you will, with understanding our Constitution, understanding how we are where we are. Most people will tell you that treaty law is the highest law in the world. I disagree. Treaty law is the second highest law. The first highest law is what I refer to as contract law. Some people refer to as contract law. Contract law is the supreme law of the land, of the entire world, internationally, locally, domestically, whatever. And the reason I say that is because everything's a matter of contract. If everything's a matter of contract, then guess what? Contract law applies. Now, one of the interesting things about contract law is that all parties to a contract have to know all the terms and conditions of the contract. Or, if not, the contract's null and void because participants of the contract didn't know all the terms and conditions thereof. So it has to be transparent. Now, how does this impact us as Americans? I would imagine that some of you do not understand that there are two governments, if you will. The first being created by our founding fathers, and they penned three documents that are outstandingly important. The first document that they penned was a Declaration of Independence. That's an extremely important document. The second one was the Constitution of 1787. Now, the reason I put the date on that is because of its importance, and I'll get to that in a minute. Then the third and last document, which is the one that seems to be missing with most Americans, is the Bill of Rights. Bill of Rights is not part of the Constitution. It was a separate document. Now, the reason I bring up contract law is because in order to be part of a contract, you got to sign the contract. If you don't sign the contract, you're not part of it. Now, you could say, well, we were born in the United States, so therefore we're covered by the Constitution. Yeah, okay. But that's like saying you lived with mom and dad and they had a mortgage, so you're covered by the mortgage. Not really. This is how they get you. Contract law. When we were younger, I would imagine that a great number of you, like I, went down to the Social Security office. Now, I'm not saying Social Security because it's Social Security. I'm just saying we went down to the Social Security office because we had to get a Social Security number to go flip hamburgers at McDonald's or wherever we needed to get a job when we were young teenagers. So we would go down to Social Security and they give you a number and you sign a little piece of paper and you're off to the races. Now you got this number that's going to be with you for the rest of your life. Great idea. What you don't realize is you signed a contract. Everything you do is a contract. It's an agreement. Now, whether you know the terms and conditions of the agreement or not, probably is a big deal. If you don't know the terms and conditions of the contract and you signed into it, then it becomes what they refer to as an adhesion contract. I'll give you another contract that everybody probably did when they were 16, driver's license. No big deal. Signed into it, got a driver's license. Didn't know you were signing the contract. Didn't know that you were accepting a privilege over a right. See, the original Constitution, again, 1787, guarantees you have the right to travel. Ah, but you signed into a corporation. Let me explain that. In 1868, a Scottish company, i.e., under the authority of the King of England, because after all, the King of England controls everything. So if a Scottish company did something, it must have been approved or acknowledged or within the scope of the King's permission. So the Scottish company comes over to the United States, 1868, and they form a corporation in Washington, D.C., and the name of that corporation, or title of the corporation, is the United States of America Incorporated. That's kind of interesting. Then in 1871, the Congress puts together the 1871 Act. Now, the 1871 Act adopts this corporation as the corporation for Washington, D.C. Voila! The federal government is born. And since 1871, with some minor adjustments up until 1874, I think, if memory serves me, we're operating under this umbrella of a corporation. Then they require all the states to become incorporated. So here's the deal. Everything you do has been signing contracts with a foreign corporation. Why do I say foreign corporation? Because Washington, D.C. and the Congress and the federal government had no authority to form a corporation and subvert the republic. So our Constitution of 1787 got thrown under the bus because they came up with a new Constitution, which were the bylaws for the corporation, i.e. the federal government. I'll give you the supremacy clause. Now, if you look to the federal government, they'll tell you that they have supreme position because they're the federal government under the supremacy clause. That's not what the Constitution says. The Constitution says the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, not the federal government. Beginning to see where this is going? So your entire existence, unless of course you were born before 1868, your entire existence has been dealing with a fraudulent foreign corporation that it had formed unconstitutionally without any lawful authority to do so, and certainly didn't notify we, the American people, or we the people. But then we're not we the people, because we stopped being we the people in 1871. Now we're the sheeple, because everything comes by privilege, by contract. That's how they did it. So you need to understand that this is how they get away with what they do. Then they come back and say, well, yeah, you have rights, but we're going to control those rights and we're going to manipulate those rights into definitions that we tell you this is what it means. Is that what the Constitution says? No. Does the Constitution have all kinds of meanings and all kinds of phrases? No. It's pretty blunt, tells you pretty much what it's supposed to do. Give you the Second Amendment. Most of the rules and regulations that they have attached to the Second Amendment, registrations, and now we can have only can have magazines and clips and things that only have 10 rounds, and yada yada. Is that is that in the Second Amendment? No. Freedom of speech. The controls they want to now put on freedom of speech, are those controls in the Constitution, in the freedom of speech, freedom of religion? Now, if you're a Christian, boy, you're going to start getting persecuted. It's all a matter of contract. We've been contractually giving away who we are, what we're about, for basically about 150 years. Living a lie. They lied. We didn't know enough to check it. Fact check. And I welcome any of you to think that I'm just a crazy old man. Good. Go look it up. Readily available right here on the internet. Go look up the two constitutions for the United States. Go look up the Foreign Corporation, United States of America Incorporated. Go look up the 1871 Act. Good place to start is go to New Hampshire. They had a House bill that dealt with the original 13th Amendment, not the one that was fraudulently created and put into their corporate constitution, which was about emancipation. The original 13th Amendment talked about titles of nobility. Go look at that. House Bill, I believe it's 638, 635, 638. You can find it. Dealing with the original 13th Amendment, which was lawfully ratified and still stands to this day as part of the Constitution. Have you ever heard about it? No, probably not, but it's there. Many, 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 many years ago, I was working through all of these different things. I've been working through these things for about 50 years. And the gentleman, that I ran into or that I met told me everything they do, they have to write down. They have to keep a record of everything they do. Trick is finding out where they kept the record. I got a clue for you. Write this down if you can. You'll find the record under what they refer to as corpus juris secundum. That's Latin for second body of law. Second body of law. Why do you think they need a second body of law? And in section 19 and 20 of Corpus Juris Secundum, they talk about foreign corporations. So the federal government is a foreign corporation, unconstitutionally created without proper notice and jurisdiction and approval from the people, which we were the people before we started signing into contracts. Then the states, foreign corporations, the counties, foreign corporations, the cities, foreign corporations, all listed all talked about in this second body of law, corpus juris secundum. Now, how do you undo that? How do you undo that you gave away all of your God given rights and accepted privileges? How do you undo that? Simple answer. And I'm going to go back to the idea that you were never part of it in the first place. Did you sign the contract? Simple question. Did you sign the contract? What contract? How about the Declaration of Independence? Did you sign it? Probably not. How about the Constitution? Did you sign the Constitution? Again, probably not. And most people don't even know that the Bill of Rights is a completely separate document. Never mind, did you sign it? So if you never signed the contracts, how do you think you're a part of it? How do you think it applies to you, especially when you signed other contracts that say you're accepting privileges instead of rights? Give you a perfect example. State of California Corporation. Corporation was formed in 1879. State of California, or the Republic of California, was formed in 1849. So California was only a republic for 30 years. Who and or what is the state of California? Now, if the state of California is a foreign corporation, as is explained in the corpus juris secundum, then let me ask you a question. The Department of Motor Vehicles. First of all, how did your automobile become a vehicle? Good question. Words have meanings. Look this stuff up. So, the Department of Motor Vehicles, it's a department of what? A foreign corporation that has no standing. Because how can you be a citizen of a foreign corporation? I can be a citizen of a corporation anyhow. Can I be a citizen of Sears? A citizen of McDonald's? What is a citizen? According to Roman law, a citizen is a slave or indentured servant. Excuse me. So who knows? Maybe we are citizens. We're certainly considered indentured servants. Without rights, we only get privileges that they deem is necessary. So you want to break this chain of adhesion contracts you've been signing into all your life? Real simple. And there's a website that you can actually go do this. But I prefer to do it kind of the hard way. Go find yourself on the internet a really good copy of the Declaration of Independence and print it out. And when you do that, down in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see an empty space. I mean, it wasn't, I don't think, intentionally left empty. It just happened to be an empty space. And you want to write some little phrase in there that you accept and agree with the Declaration of Independence, and you put your signature to it with the date. Now, what's that do? That takes that Declaration of Independence out of being a historical document that's only on display in the Smithsonian and probably some glass case someplace, and makes it a live document, valid today, and valid for you because you signed it. Then you take that to a notary, you get it notarized. So now it's on record, and then you send it into the proper people or proper agency in the foreign corporation. Now you've declared your independence of their unconstitutional, unlawful corporation. Get it? Now, go find yourself a constitution of 1787. And this you print out. And you want to print out a really good copy. Now, there are sources where you can print it out for, 11 to 14 to 20 bucks or whatever, where the print is actually legible. If you want to do that, that's really a good idea, because you want to be able to read this thing. If you just print out the Constitution as it is, as it shows up, probably wouldn't be able to read it because the print is so faint. And I think there's 4 or 5 pages to the Constitution. So you print out the whole entire Constitution and the 4 or 5 pages, and you initial each page with a date. And then when it comes down to the bottom, you sign it with today's date, or a current date, and you go get that notarized. Now you're a party to that contract. Then, last but not least, you find the Bill of Rights, and you do the same process with the Bill of Rights. Now you've signed all 3 documents. They're no longer historical documents. They're now alive, notarized documents. And you send them into the appropriate agencies. And you now are no longer a citizen of a foreign corporation, unlawful, unconstitutional foreign corporation. You are now a civilian of the Republic. I learned about this generically when I was about 17 years old. How did I learn about it? I got sworn in, or had to swear in, had to take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. But before I could take the oath to protect and defend the Constitution, we had to study the Constitution. If I remember right, they called it Blue Book. So I kind of got an idea what the Constitution was about when I was 17 years old. It took me a long time to figure out how all this fits. I'd have this success and that success, and I just considered it was that little event that was successful. But here recently, in the last 10, 15 years, I realized that it wasn't the events, it was getting out of the contracts. Anyway, study the Constitution, study the Bill of Rights, study the Declaration of Independence, and sign them, date them, notarize them, send them in. Then you have your freedom back. Then you have your rights. Then you're no longer living under permission. You got to think about that. If I have to get somebody's permission, then probably don't own whatever it is that I'm getting permission for. If I have to go to the state of California to get permission to travel, then did I ever have the right to travel? I did until I gave it away and waited for them to grant me permission. If you have to ask somebody's permission to do something, then obviously you don't own it. Should be pretty simple. Now you sign and do what I just told you to do. Declaration of Independence, Constitution of 1787, and the Bill of Rights as it was written. And you remove yourself from their foreign corporation. You remove yourself from the feudal federal government. You remove yourself from the corporate state government. You remove yourself from the corporate county government. You remove yourself from the corporate cities, municipalities. Then they have no jurisdiction and no authority to impose over you. And I know this works really, really well. So that's how you fix the problem. You think you go into courts, you think you go into talk to judges. They're not courts. They're administrative hearings units for the corporation. That guy wearing the black robe, he's not a judge. He is an administrative hearings officer. You have to take back that which you gave away. The only way you can take it back is by signing those 3 documents. I've done that years and years and years ago. You sign that Declaration of Independence, and I guarantee you, they go running for the hills. You sign the Constitution, 1787 Constitution, they're done. And you sign the Bill of Rights, now they can't take any of those rights away from you and grant them back to you as a privilege. The state, the government, the federal government, corporate state, they didn't give you those rights. Those rights came from God. Now, when this gets published or whatever, there'll be ways of getting back and a hold of me and whatever, and I can give you more information. I'll try and do more of these little videos. If people knew what I know after 30 years of intelligence and black ops and things that were never supposed to happen, if you knew what I know by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, we would have civil disobedience by noon, because 98%, at the very least, 98% of what you think you know is a lie. A lie perpetrated and taught to you and brainwashed into you, that melon you got on your shoulders, the whole time you were going to public, government-controlled schools, being taught what they wanted you to know. And believe it, probably about 98% is a lie. With that, I wish you a very pleasant day. If you have any questions, there will be links connected to this that you'll be able to direct your questions back to me. And I challenge anybody to research what I just said and point out where I'm wrong. Won't happen. With that, I bid you a very peaceful and happy day. God bless, and God bless America.